for other folks who are not able to attend right now. On the line, we have Linda Caballero Sotelo, Andrew Oot, Heath Fox, Tatiana Cizanenko, myself, Susana Pareto Swap, and Theo Jurist. Theo is our PR marketing intern. So he's hanging in there with us. Theo, if you can take notes, just kind of anything that you think is important to pay attention to for the rest of the team, that would be awesome. Yeah, and so Tatiana, I'm going to let you lead this conversation because I feel like it's related to how we're going to design the curatorial vision for this. I know that all of you have heard me say that it's important that this be experiential, that it be transformative, and it be cross-industry collaborative. So, and then you all know the story of Logan Heights. We know a little bit about its history and the community that it serves. So those are the most important things to me, is that it not just be art on walls, right? That it be something that can include, oh, here's Arturo, great. Hola, Arturo. So Arturo Rodríguez.
Feliz cumpleaños, Arturo.
Felicidades.
Ahora sí está conectado.
Hola, felicidades.
Hola, gracias.
Thank you. Mira, you're so sweet. Thank you for joining us on your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Gracias.
Anyway, as I was saying before, just the most important part is that it just be interactive, collaborative, experiential or immersive in some way where it's not just art on walls or a sculpture standing somewhere. And that's kind of as far as I'm going to take it. Tatiana, I know you have a better idea of how to create a curatorial vision, and Linda as well. Actually, all of you.
Well, I guess I was put on the spot. I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to be on the spot, but it's okay. I think if we can come up with at least three key points for what we want to accomplish as a curatorial idea for this event, if we can produce those 3 key points, I think that would be great. Because we need to, I think one of the major necessities is to put a call for participation. And I've been texting Susanna several times this fall. Susanna, what is going to be our call for participation? And so we have nothing yet to share with the prospective artists, like the parameters of what the installations might be, what the ideas they might be working on in terms of the individual artistic projects. So I think the goal for us today is if we can produce at least 3 key messages that we want to communicate for the prospective artists, that would be wonderful. And so let's have discussion about this, what these key messages could be, given that we are sort of like, it is a practice event before the design. San Diego is a design capital of the world, of the world design capital, and also cross-border. And so we are perhaps preparing for that with that in mind. So it is dry run in preparation for that. So this probably should be also incorporated into our key messages as well, potentially identifying really good artists to engage for this event, but also thinking that how that will communicate in the following year.
Just from the last meeting and from listening to Susanna's guidance on this, and Andrew and Linda I was struck by their comments at the last meeting. It seems like the thinking on this, to your 3 points, Tatiana, is one, we want to resonate in some way with the design capital in 2024. It doesn't have to be an exact match, but it ought to resonate in some way. One of the words that was used last time was innovation. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a word, but what does that mean in this context? The other thing is it needs to resonate in some way, as has been mentioned, needs to resonate in some way with the binational character of the area that we live in and the border and that sort of thing. And we did talk about local artists for 2023, as opposed to going more broadly, possibly in 2024. And then the last thing is the notion of an interactive, experiential type of festival. So that it suggests that this is going to be more performance-based and performance work in various modes, as opposed to something that leans more in the direction of traditional exhibitions. So we're probably talking about the need to work with people in the performing arts or performance artists, as opposed to more 2- and 3-dimensional visual artists.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll add one more layer to that, which is representing the community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
directly.
And I would like to add to what he's saying, that it is also installation art. Yes, performance art, installation art, what we are. And perhaps it is also social practice. Maybe it is installation art that is a participatory, that engages in certain issues, whether it is a neighborhood or transborder issues. So it is involving the audience to interact rather than to be on a wall as a just simple installation. So social practice, perhaps also, that would be to add to the kind of formats where we'll be looking, considering performance, installation, social practice. I'm not sure if you...
It might also be a good opportunity to sort of survey the community in some way, to see like if they could design their community, if they could design the future of their community, like some kind of prompt question or some sort of interactive experience somehow that prompts them. If we're talking about design, right, like there's many versions of design that is not traditional design. There's also, you know, policy design, and there's you know, how you design cities and the movement of people through spaces and traffic control and things like that, that are not sexy necessarily, but they are related to design in every way. So maybe there's like an opportunity somehow to ask them a little question that they drop into a box that everyone gets, or they tape it to a wall, you know, Post-its, like something very simple, but that can be engaging and get some feedback for what year 2 could look like. And then that information obviously could be beneficial to elected leaders and everything. I should also mention that we had a meeting with our logistics team, and these are the people who are helping us to produce the festival, the street festival portion of it. They produce the taco and beer festival and several other large scale, like hundreds of thousands of people in attendance at these festivals. And they're strongly recommending that we change this to a one-day event, because 2 days for what we're trying to accomplish is just too big of a stretch. And I'm really leaning toward doing that. I don't know if you guys have any strong objections to that. It's a 4-hour, you know, program. Technically 4.5 if you count the trolley dances experiences that kicks it all off in the beginning. And we have several locations. And so maybe, for example, I'm just going to use one example. If you remember, there's a warehouse that we walked into that now has like a printing company. We've opted to close. Maybe I should show you. We're thinking about closing 2 streets. So you have the main corridor, which is commercial, and then you have 2 little side streets. That is just 1 block that's going to be closed down. And so there could be activity on the street. So there's a lot of street access, street areas on the street, external outdoors that could be activated. But for example, that one of those buildings has like a little patio area that faces the street. And I got excited about that, thinking that there could be performances there. And so if we just slot things that happen like every half hour, some new something happens, and meanwhile, concurrently, somewhere else, something is happening, so that you can decide where you want to go. Oh, I want to see, Malashok Dance do their performance. Let's go head over there. And then and then after that, we'll head over here. So they're encouraging a constant movement of bodies through this corridor, so that we're not starting people off here and then here and then here, because then these people kind of get left behind. There's nothing happening at the end of the corridor. So that constant movement is what fuels that activity, that feeling of excitement. I'm not sure if I'm expressing that best. Do you want to see a picture of what I'm talking about? Would that be helpful?
Susanna,
yeah.
can I jump in
Please.
here? I want to recognize too that you have brought together a great group of people. You are very good at doing that, bringing people together to talk about these ideas, not only who we have here in this room, but also the last curatorial conversation that we had. I think that there is a lot of knowledge and power with all of us combined. I also know, and I'm going to speak for myself here, is that our time is very tight. Not only for mine to be able to do my job in my institution, but also to help guide a curatorial definition, work with artists, bring them on, all of that process. And I'm sure the same thing could be said of John Malashok, as you're mentioning him, but others too. And then also to Tatiana's point about the challenges of putting out a call for entries type thing, and we are about 9 months away from this project. Do you see the possibility, and this is preempting, this is sort of like it is a question, but it's also preempting another point. Do you see the possibility of focusing on or not doing 2023 and focusing only on 2024? I say that with an answer of that would allow us to have more time to be able to build more projects. It would allow for more funding and allow for a bigger project. I know you want to do a test run, but also I think a test run can be done with a great big project too. And I want to also say that in the last week, I've had a couple of conversations, one with an individual donor who would really like to see a major international biennial come to San Diego and is willing to support this. And the other from the city and the potential, I specifically asked for $2 million for the project, and they said that is not out of the realm of possibility. So I think that there is money and interest in doing something big. I worry a little bit that doing something in a short time period might dilute the power of the project.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely valid points. I'm not, we had this conversation also with this logistics team, and what they're suggesting is that we do a very super pared down version of it that's tight, right? Not like a big massive street festival, but something that's really tight, so that we get the beautiful visuals that we're seeking to help promote 2024. So it's really, this year's entire purpose is to create a marketing package, a suite, like a sizzle reel, to promote San Diego as a cultural destination, to support World Design Capital. Because right now, what World Design Capital people have is design. It's not inclusive of the arts and culture community right now, right? And for them to they don't have the resources to reach out to the arts community and say, hey, everybody send me videos and let me coordinate all the videos of the stuff you've done, and let me send that. They don't really have that connection to the arts community like we do. So that's the goal of this, is really, I think if we pare it down and make it tight enough, then it doesn't have to feel so drastic. I understand that so advisors to this group, your participation can be as limited or as robust as you want, right? The people who are really taking this on are the people from the Vanguard Culture team who are, that's how they're donating their time. But what we're looking for the external people to help us with is suggestions of artists, in ideas for creative projects. But you don't have to necessarily man the project and be the lead on that project. You could just offer suggestions, offer advice, curatorial, help us with certain fixes if there's something that we need advice on. I don't know that I can cancel the 23 version at this point, because we've engaged so many people. And at this point, it just feels like it needs to move forward. And I need it to move forward because I don't want to make all the mistakes in front of a world audience, I want to make them here locally with us. And
So if we think in terms the way you described it as a tight festival, right? Not the scale that we might envision for 24, but something more modest. I mean, we've already got the involvement of the trolley dances.
yeah.
So given the space involved in terms of what might be considered a performance space or an installation space, how many arts organizations do you need to fill those spaces to keep a tight event over a 4-hour period?
I'm thinking performance art. Your question sounds to me like the performance part. So I think that if we fill like every half hour, right? So we're talking about 4 hours and a something every half an hour. That's eight. That's 8 somethings. Did I do that right? So that's 8 somethings in one of the, in just that one performance space that I'm thinking of. So let's say if 3 different venues had performances, right? We're talking about 24 somethings at most. It could be half of that and be just fine, because they're walking into experiences, engagements, all of that. But if we want the performance element, like the opera could perform twice, Malashot could perform twice. If we bring in the symphony, which I'm talking to folks right now, that kind of, they just take up slots, and then people kind of curate their own experience, like the standalone. Go ahead.
So if my math is right, we've got 4 hours, we've got, cut it in half, 12 performances, and 2 performances per organization. That means we need 6 organizations.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's not a lot. We already have
to build the bones of the one-day festival, right? And then the projections on the walls and the culinary pieces and all that can be added to that.
So the question also is how many visual artists that you want to feature to frame this event, because it just sounds, if it is busy with performance.
That I don't have an answer for, because it's 100% would be inspired by the walkthrough, deciding where we can have that. I want to show you the map. Let me show you the map that we came up with. That's like a pared down version, right? So originally we talked about coming through here, we're not going to engage the Warhouse anymore, except for the front part of it. Because they're just doing this like construction back there, and it doesn't look like there's going to be enough space for us to do anything. So why take people up this alley and make them all go here? It's not even worth it. We don't even need to close the street anymore. Can you guys see okay?
Yes.
Big enough? And then the CrossFit people potentially could open up their space, maybe for a performance. They have a lot of space. So I wouldn't mind that happening. So this whole trolley stop and the brewery would be kind of like what they're suggesting is that we have 2 check-in zones. And that will help with the parking issue, right? So if not everybody takes the trolley, people can park in this community, and then they can also park in this community over here on this side, on both sides, the anchor, the corridor. So you have a check-in here and a check-in here. And then so you'd walk down this corridor, potentially do something at CrossFit. This is the cobbler and the printer. And then right here is this street that I was talking about that touches that. And so this street would be shut down. And then this corridor here and this street would be shut down next to the soap factory. There's 3 things happening. It's the soap factory, Low-High, which is that festival team. They're opening up like an event space, bar, food, culinary area. So that's what Low-High means. And then the arts residencies that you saw, which are the 3-level shipping container art spaces. So that's all happening. That's what this whole space is. But they have lots of outdoor space available to us if we wanted to activate that as well. So the only like installation areas that we have is these are 2 warehouses stuck together, the printer and the cobbler. So 1 warehouse way here, 1 warehouse here, this entire street, and then a lot of space here with the soap factory and the like big plot of land, open plot of land. The corridor could have art engagements. It could just be a walking space where vendors sell their wares, and it's just transit points, art, either murals or some kind of static things. These blue areas here is where we have projections on walls as a possibility, right? So these are blank white walls that we could do something with, and they're just seeing it from across the street. Basically, it's just something that anchors the other side. So it's actually not that many spaces. How are you feeling?
I'm just thinking it also, thinking in terms of a scaled, a little bit of a downscaling of the project. We've been talking as if we're going to commission new work from arts organizations for this. And maybe we don't need to do that, especially as Andrew pointed out, given the time frame that is relatively short. Maybe we can suggest to organizations that if they have existing work as opposed to creating new work, that would work too, as long as it resonates with the theme of the overall festival.
I agree with that. I'm actually working on a project for March with the De La Torre brothers. And so they're planning on doing video, like massive video installations in our space. I could certainly talk to them about putting those videos in that corridor. I think that would be easier using what we already have rather than creating something new.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea. I think this, and so, paring it down makes it possible for us to get those beautiful money shots that we're looking for the video. And I hear you, Andrew, like I absolutely would love for this to be the kickoff of a biennial event that all of San Diego's arts institutions jump in on and get excited about, and that it brings cultural tourism to San Diego on a regular basis. I would absolutely love for this to be the initiator of something like that. But we do need something to happen in 23 just for the purposes of being able to promote large scale 2024, right? To give them a visual for them to get excited about. So if not, the World Design Capital experience potentially could be just talks and workshops and conferences and conversations, and that's all fine, but it's not going to be inclusive of the arts and culture community. And that's my entire agenda here, is that I don't want us to be forgotten in the World Design Capital celebrations. Everyone's having all these meetings and talking, just talking about design, and that's all great, but it's not, unless I bring it to the table, no one's talking about arts and culture. So it's like, I've got to, this is, for me, it's part of that, is to get them excited about how arts and culture can be a part of this conversation.
Suzanne, now going back to this call for the artists that we need to produce. So I think we can, and I'm talking to everybody in the room. So it sounds like if we put together a very simple call for participation to local artists to come with existing or new work. Yeah, so we can kind of highlight existing or new work that promotes innovations in visual arts that resonate with the binational character of the region, and also engages with local communities in San Diego. And it is in nature, installation, social practice, or interactive multimedia artwork that will be included in this festival. Probably it shouldn't be too complicated call for participation. Just sounds from that we are not so, we are close to the deadline. And so if they can submit their proposals by the beginning of March, yes, so something like that, with a deadline March 1st, deadline, I'm not sure, March, the end of March deadline. So the question is, again, are you looking for up to 10 artists? That it is giving the limited scope, and what would be the award amount per artist? I mean, they could be tailored to their projects, but still the in the
We can
message.
give them a range. We can give them a range in the call to give them the, it just depends on what they're proposing, right? But so I think we could potentially have something that activates the trolley line, the visual, like a visual installation. If you remember, that's where we have that long stretch of, there's like a long wall at the, it's just a wooden wall, or wooden fence rather. And then they have the chain link fence on the other side that touches the church. So that's potentially 1 or 2 artists there. Possibly something at the brewery, but I doubt it. I feel like that's going to be more than just the gathering space and all the activity. Here in front of the Warhouse and in front of CrossFit is that, like, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina kind of thing, where you're looking up. And so it's like a natural performance space. So I would use those primarily for performance spaces. CrossFit could have 1 art installation, like a full-scale installation. The Cobbler and the Printer, that's 2 more opportunities for full-scale installation. I hope you guys are keeping track of that.
Yes.
And then this is a street, that's a closed street, a closure that could have an art installation. But this is also the corner where there's that performance space that I would like to activate. So maybe it's mostly the performance here on this side. You have two possible interior installations here, and then a performance outside. This is all corridor, walking space. So I don't know that something could be installed there on a temporary basis. Maybe it's a permanent basis if we work with the property owners. And this is another street closure here. And for sure, a large scale installation here, at least one or two. So how many was that? Was anybody counting?
It's about 9,
Yeah.
9. So
Yeah, so let's say 10, up
10.
to 10 artists. We're seeking up to 10 artists. And, you know, we're hoping for, as you meant, all of the specs right now that you've detailed sound correct to me. I would add site specific or site responsive to that.
Okay.
And then the open, and then concurrently there'll be an open call for performances, which will be, let's see, 1, 2, 3.
do you know what could
Okay.
be a maximum budget for the visual arts for this?
Per artist, per
Uh,
artist.
Up to, yeah, because they might have different needs, visual artists, but what is the total might be for the budget that you want to spend?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now you have for sure 15,000, and we have another 25 that is for the festival alone, and then another 10 that's coming in. So I would say, I think if you can try to work inside of 15 for now. I'm seeking more funding, but if you can try to work inside of 15 for now for just the visual arts component. I'm reserving 10,000 right now for the performing arts component, but I'm not sure that I'm going to need all of it.
Okay, so it's up to 15,000 divided between up to 10 artists, depends on their needs. Okay.
Yeah.
And Susanna, just to add on top of this, what is your timeline and budget goal for 2024? Because I think it's also important that we consider projects for the future.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, this is a great opportunity to receive, like, it's maybe we can even respond to them saying in not for 23, but this would be great for 24. I don't have those numbers yet. I feel like we're going to find out a lot in the next, few months in terms of how much support we're going to get financially from WDC. Like, they have never, they're fundraising themselves, they're fundraising. I forgot what their goal was. Couple $1 million or something like that, at least, of fundraising. And I can't share too much more, but they're not, no one's ever, I've never had an expectation that they were going to fund anything, except I've had a couple of mentions like, oh yeah, maybe we can help you, maybe we can pay for that. And I'm like, well, can you? You know what I mean? So until I get like a firm, I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I have zero expectations from them of actual funding, but I have had a couple people mention that it's possible. I just don't know, like, if they meet their fundraising. And most of the money that they're fundraising for is because when you become World Design Capital, you actually have to pay them for the privilege of hosting the festival. And then on top of that, you have to fundraise for the production of whatever it is you're going to do. So it's a hefty fundraising amount. I don't have that number. I mean, I hope to get it in the next few months to have a sense of like how much support we have, not just from them, but the excitement that we gather from sponsors and all of that.
What do you think, just off the top of your head, what would be a dream number to get for 2024?
For 2024, I think we need at least 200,000.
Okay.
I mean, right now we're shooting for 100,000 for this festival. That's our goal. 150 would be ideal. But for 24, this is the tight one-day festival, the tight version of it. So I'm going to double that if we're shooting for a great festival, large scale, 20 in 24. And by 2024, all this, by 2024, this corridor will already be fully activated. Like the arts residencies will be in full gear. They're commissioning them to do several like art installations, at primarily murals right now that I know of. But also just like art engagements throughout the year to activate this space. The brewery will be up and running. And then they will have purchased 2 more properties on top of that. So by then, so sorry, I think I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, well, you started this conversation with the word abundance. I was hoping for a number much higher than 200.
Like millions? Let's
I was looking
go.
for millions. Yeah, honestly.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for at least 2 million in that. I mean, if we look at Desert X, I think their budget is around 2.5 to 5. I think it ranges. Creative Time in New York also ranges depending upon the size of their project.
Mhm.
2.5 to 5. Performa in New York is also the same way. I mean, these are large actions that they take, major projects. And I think if we're going to go big, we should go big or go home kind of thing. And I
Mhm.
think that the city has the money, but it requires also steps to get to that. So we're talking about, I mean, I almost see it as like what you described as building a marketing platform so that you can have it's marketing and it's fundraising, right? You're building sort of the precursor to say, hey, this is what will be, but times 100
Yeah.
to donors. And then it also is an ability for you to record so you can build content around promoting it for the next one. It's almost like the quality for me of this initial presentation isn't as high or as important as the actual, I would call it the number one big festival in 24, and I would assume it's in September the same.
Yeah.
So I mean,
late August, which is
yeah.
Labor Day weekend. I think it's the 31st.
I mean, I feel
I love
pretty
the way you're
confident.
thinking, Andrew. Take us.
I mean, I feel pretty confident in being able to like supply a bunch of video artists. Like, I mean, I just did a video show in Balboa Park, and just the cost of like getting the videos is so low. It's like less than $2,000, and you can do amazing things with that. I mean, the total for the entire show was $20,000, and that included projectors, buying projectors. Talking about massive 8,000 lumen projectors. So you can do a lot with a little, especially with video. I don't think that's an issue. And I think with performance too, you can do some really creative things in creative spaces, which I think is what you're leading. But I honestly think that we should be looking farther beyond to 2024 and developing the timeline and the approach towards making that be a much bigger festival.
If I can just chime in, I agree with Andrew. I was just wanting to hear kind of everybody's take on how they're feeling, some of the objectives you're describing, Susana, as well. And the 1 day kind of experience in September, I totally get why you would want to do something like that and the commitments you have. It does sound much more around the performance aspect, which is fine for that day. People can do a lot of that and then have some of the projections. But I think I'm more concerned about the call for artists for this part of it, unless it's part of a plan where we announce 2024 as being part of the call for artists. So folks can have an entire year to think about it for that part. Whereas the 2023 is more, as you already shared, the 1 day kind of get that in the community, get some feedback, get some visuals, get a wonderful experience for that day to kind of set the mark. Like we've done it before. It's not the first time in 2024 type of thing. But I would like to see a 2-3 year plan on this. If we work backwards from that, then we can put down numbers and we can really be targeted in terms of fundraising. I'm 100% on board with Andrew's assessment of going big, for all of it. And I mean, I would even like to see for us, if we go for the 1 day in September, which is more around performance, you know, let's put together a budget on that if you don't have one already. Let's just put
Yeah.
it down on paper and do like a projected budget. Put down, I'm making this up, $100,000 for it, you know, and then fill into that the monies that have already been committed, and then we can break it down in sections: performance, artists, whatever. And then we have a really good sense of what we have, talking about, you know, what's tangible at this point, and what we need to raise and strive for, you know, to
Yeah.
hit those marks. I think having a roadmap for this is going to be critical, more long term than just reactively. We have 4 spaces, we have 3 spaces. Who can we stick in there? Who can we put in there? We can totally do that. We've all done that in different ways. But I think we have a real opportunity to be thoughtful about it. I think if you went through the map right now, if your intern highlights those sections where we have spaces where actual visual artists could project or what have you, and then the other ones reserved for performance, if we see that marked already, and that's what we're going towards, then to Tatiana's point, we can put out a call that will serve that, and then kind of also put the teaser in there. If your work falls under this category in visual arts or whatever it is, you know, that requires this, you know, we might consider you for 2024. Are you okay with that? You know, so that they see that this is one part and the second part. I just wanted to share that perspective.
Yeah, I also would like to add that I agree with Andrew's vision about thinking ahead, planning ahead with a really robust fundraising campaign. And obviously video art is absolutely, it's an amazing opportunity to to use that for as a part of the visual art presentation. My question is also about the space, Susanna. I mean, if we're thinking big, and for Andrew as well, for biennial, is it envisioned 2024 the same space for the festival that we're considering working within right now, or is it going to be hosted in different venues throughout different institutions in 2024? That's what I don't understand.
Oh, I love that idea. I love that idea. I think that, you know, if we're talking about an ongoing yearly festival, this is what we're shooting for, right? We're shooting for something where where you're encouraged to visit different areas of town. And, you know, I love the idea of it going broader. For right now, you know, many of you all know the story of how we got here. But we finally got to a place where it's one property owner that owns several properties versus having to negotiate with 10 different property owners, which was just a mess. I spun my wheels for a year and a half. And so now here we are. So I'm grateful that we have this opportunity, but I think the momentum of what comes from this could definitely open up to the greater San Diego community. It doesn't have to be all in one location. We certainly could have this as some sort of central hub if the relationship continues and the community loved it and all the things. It could be like a home base sort of kickoff moment, and then you go off into different locations for a whole week or for a couple of days or whatever the experience could be. So there's potential there for sure. I love that.
I mean, I'm going to add to that in saying that I think a lot of organizations would jump on to that. And I'd be happy to facilitate conversations around that too. I would also say that getting an internationally recognized curator and running a curatorial team would be a part of that too. And having, you know, a $200,000 curatorial budget would be really powerful for creating a project that would be more world renowned, world recognized. I mean, I know a number of curators who are the top curators at the Tate or at the Guggenheim or throughout Latin America. And I mean, I could certainly ask any one of them and they would probably do it for like a lot cheaper than 200,000. They would do it probably for like 40,000 and then bring in a curatorial team to help move that forward. And they have all the contacts in the world to be able to bring amazing artists if they have specific commission amounts in terms of making it happen. So I think you have the resources, Susana. It's about just kind of following along with that timeline and making it happen. I'm happy to help.
So we are,
Yeah,
just to clarify,
I agree.
yeah, we're talking about something like Venice Biennale model, yes, where we have different pavilions, let's say, yes, that host installation art throughout the city. I mean, obviously all the cultural institutions that would like to offer their exhibition venues for dedicated for that particular time period, for that for those curated by the committee, international committee exhibitions. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Well, I just want to remind us, if we don't know, that we've done this in San Diego exactly in that model for Insight. We did it in 97, in 2000, and 95. I mean, we've done it many times.
Yeah.
And I think that it was successful because it had such a structure. It was a triennial. It was a biennial originally, then a triennial. And the format was exactly that. It was 4 international curators, a series of residencies, and then public art with a bunch of agencies and a bunch of organizations that partnered with Insight. So we would have an exhibition or an installation at the Museum of Contemporary Art as part of Insight. We would have another one in downtown at the library. We would have another one in Tijuana at the Secut. I mean, it was like 80 sites. One of the last 2 versions, at least 80 artists. And there was 2 lines of installations and projects. So one was the invited artists that were global. And the second one, reacting to the border region, by the way. That's why they came to the border region to do work. They selected Tijuana or San Diego or Canada, but it was mainly Tijuana and San Diego. But then the second portion of it was community engagement projects, which was based in communities, Logan or where San Isidro or where have you. And some artists did activism and art and murals, chose to do the work in those communities only, and they had their own track, like we're trying to do with Logan in some respect. So we've done a lot of that in the past. There's some lessons learned there, and massive amounts of money were raised for that. I can promise you. My budget alone in projects on that was, gosh, close to $1 million. My budget, and it was one division, which was public art projects, and this was in 2097. So there's certainly funds, there's certainly interest, there's certainly a need, and there's a void. And I think the timing is really, God, it's really perfect in ways that it wasn't back then, in terms of technology usage, in terms of video, in terms of all kinds of things that we can really capitalize on. That's what just wasn't there back then. So, it's again, yeah, like a Venice Biennale, but it's not like a Venice Biennale, in many ways. If we really care about our communities and engaging them, it is not a Venice Biennale. It is a San Diego Tijuana Biennale or triennial, which is very different. So, it's not highbrow in that way, but it is highbrow in different ways and community engaged. So I'm totally convinced that this can be very successful, that it can happen again. People keep asking, why haven't we done that again? Why hasn't that happened? So there's wide interest, as Andrew has pointed out. And I think it's the key that I see here. I'm just going to say it because, like all of us here, we've been doing this a long time, 20 some years or more, The key is to be really organized now, not to be, I don't know which spaces I'm not saying this to you, Susan, in general, because I think as artists, curators, and cultural producers, we tend to be very loosey-goosey. But if we're going to go for the big bucks and the big vision, we got to have a really solid plan. We got to say, our goal is X. If our goal is to be a biennial or an annual, whatever it is, set that vision now. You've said already an annual thing. You can have the scale massive every 2 years, and the year in between can be all about these other things happening. The one day, residencies, curatorial gatherings, all kinds of things. So my interest in this is certainly to support your efforts, and I've seen you working at this for a long time, certainly to support my colleagues here, to support the vision, support the region. I mean, I think we really have the quality, the talent, to see the amazing opportunity to really stand out again, like we have. People are still talking about Insight 20 years later, I've spoken all over the world about that project. So clearly there's a need and there's a space to do that. And you have all the talent, not only in the region, but we have it also within your supporters here. Yeah. So I would say that I would urge us to just be very purposeful, broad, big thinking, you know, set it, say $100,000 for September next year. Here's the budget, break it down. And I have drafts and samples.
I have the budget. We've
There
done
we
the
go.
budget.
Send us the budget, like say,
Yeah.
this is what we have and this is how I'm breaking it down. And then we can comment and say, because at the end of the day, we can have big vision, but if we don't have the support for the artists, the support for the performers, you know, people leave with a bad taste, and you don't want that. You want people to go, oh my God, you know, to be on board 1,000%. Like lay out which spaces we have. We have 10 spaces. 5 of them are spoken for performances. We have the remaining 4. I would love to see this. This is Susanna speaking. I would love to see 6 projections. We already have some in kind from companies that will help us with that. So Tatiana, you know, you said you have these artists. Let's put a call for this specific. Andrew has the De La Torres. Let's run with, I mean, like, once we get that energy, we can all like speak and preach and to everybody about it, right?
Well, with this said, it sounds like we need to produce 2 documents, Susanna. One document, and perhaps our support, the technical support, yes, Tio can help with that. So we need to produce 2 essentially visions, yeah, curatorial. One is a vision and call for our participation, which is for this year, very simple. Yes, we are not making it big, we're very simple. And then the second one, which is also has to be produced now, if we want to have this more kind of biennial festival event, which is a vision for the 2024, like what we want to accomplish from the curatorial standpoint. Is it going to be big, involving different spaces in the city, like inside,
Yeah.
or using that kind of model, or what it's going to be. And so I think we need to produce 2 different documents. They don't need to be too long or complicated, but essentially reflective of what is going to be for this year and for next year.
Is your sense, everyone on this call, that the theme, the curatorial vision will be, for the call, will be similar in theme this year and next, or 23 and 24? Responsive to the binational region, interactive, site responsive, all the things that we mentioned. Is there any other sort of you know, thinking going further, just in 24 alone for the festival? Like all the things right now sound clear, but is there anything else that we're forgetting for potentially the 24 that would take that to the next level? You know,
I'm sorry, I
vision,
only have a couple of minutes because I
Yes.
do have a hard stop at 11. I would say that this would be a great committee for identifying a curator who would lead that process of identifying the thematics for how 2024 would be overseen.
Or the co-curators. I think it would be important to have a curator from Latin America and one from the US or Europe.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. Yeah.
I would just want to add one last thing before you sign off, Andrew, and that is with respect to design capital for next year. I don't think it's far-fetched to put together a 1-page letter, Susanna, to say this is what we're working on for 2023, which is a precursor to 2024, obviously. But this is the real important space for design capital to really highlight everything they've been doing in the planning as part of what we're doing in September, and say we need $20,000 for that, $30,000, whatever. Just tell them, just say it. All they can say is we don't have it, we know. But guess what? They have a budget. And in their budget, they can add a line item that is not only for marketing and diffusion and all the other aspects, but it's also for research and development and meetings. And this is part of that. This is part of that process if it's one day. So it's not far-fetched, and that shows their commitment, and they can write us into the 2024 budget.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. All good thoughts. I'm gonna thank you. I'll make sure that all you guys have notes from the discussion today shared with you, and then you can add to it. You've all been given access to our folder for the curatorial committee folder on the drive. If you need it or haven't found or can't find it or whatever, we can send it out to you. But that would be a good place to drop visuals of suggested artists that you'd love to work with, any curatorial documents that you think might be useful to us as we develop this process, anything that might be, helpful in that sense. That's the place to put it. Tatiana, I know that you were taking some notes. If you want to share your notes with me, we can create, were you planning on creating the actual call, or do you want us to do that? We're taking notes right now, but I don't know.
I was just taking notes, Susanna. I will share my notes, and I think you
Okay.
probably already have
And so
that.
the response will be a one-page, up to one-page, descriptive of the artist's vision of what they would like to do, and then examples of past work, like at least 3 or 4 examples of past work.
Okay.
Does that sound anything else that we want from them?
No, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Happy holidays. Thank you for
Happy
spending the holiday
holidays.
week with us.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Tio,
it.
if I can ask if you could share that folder with us.
Yes, we'll reshare it. We'll reshare it. And I'm happy to stick around for anybody that has additional questions. I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you.